Let's think about it. Who is George Bailey? He's the older brother who rescues, magnanimously defers to, and boasts about the accomplishments of his younger sibling. Yes, all that. But George isn't ever directed toward, say, a new horizon after observing brother Harry go someplace new. No, that couldn't happen. There's little George Bailey, the shop boy. This is the setup for as clear a mentor-mentee relationship as could ever be. But this film never once shows the would-be, presumably should-be mediator teaching little George anything. No, we only ever get to see this relationship on that exceptional occasion in which it is inverted and the shop boy outperformed the shop owner. Then there is George Bailey, the young man, sitting at the dining room table, chatting with his father as an equal and making a respectful but conspicuous display of just how unintrigued he is by any of the activities that animate his elder. Now, in his romantic life, yes, we see someone who could have become a model for him. Think through the entirety of what Mary Hatch does on the night of their first kiss. She envisions a happy time together. Okay, that's normal date planning stuff, but she has the sensitivity to include George's aspirations to do great things, up to and including lassoing the moon. This penchant for grandiosity is exactly what makes George Bailey George Bailey. And she incorporates that into her invitation to have a fun little date there in the living room. I mean, if a loving gesture like that had been accepted, it wasn't. But if it had been, what exactly would George have received? I'd call it a spirit of sensitivity toward others and a curiosity about the subjective experience felt by one who accompanies you. And with a gift like that, which is more than a simple kiss, George could have reciprocated lovingly and opened a conversational path for her to share something more about what exactly makes Mary Hatch Mary Hatch. George doesn't do that. And to be fair, the kind of mutually reinforcing back and forth dialogue of discovery I'm imagining here would have taken the girl next door image, the college gal back in town wife-to-be image, would have taken that and pushed it dangerously close to, what's it called? Character development. Phew. Steered clear of that one multiple times. Okay, yes, George falls into Mary's embrace at the foot of the staircase, but he is not following her loving lead. No, at that moment, he's just collapsing at the realization that he will be stuck at the building and loan indefinitely, that he will not be going to college. And remember how he's on the phone? Yeah, hee-haw Sam. This is also when George realized that he simply doesn't have the money to join in on any big, exciting business endeavors, not even when one is served up to him on a silver platter by a friend. No, all he can do is grit his teeth and put forth selling points for the tiny town he desperately wishes to leave. In the lengthy cast list of It's a Wonderful Life, there is a glaring absence of any figure who ever once mediated a desire to George Bailey. So, if there is a mimetic insight disclosed here, it'll have to come from analyzing this very absence. It's hard to give a robust characterization of a healthy person if he only ever encounters cardboard flat characters. But whoever said George Bailey was healthy? This protagonist embodies lifelong reluctance. He enacts a slow, steady rejection, unperturbed and yet entirely unsuccessful. Picture a scrawny participant on the losing end of a tug-of-war. He knows he's losing. He knows exactly which way he'll end up going, but he does not loosen his grip. No, he may be bouncing, but his heels are dug in every time they touch the ground. It's a precarious balance. He'll soon need the other side pulling against him just to stay upright. Yeah, he needs them, but he couldn't possibly join in with them and still be himself. No. Okay, that picture of a scrawny tug-of-war kid is the picture of George Bailey, through and through to the very core. And you're not likely to see it on a single viewing. Now, you could take issue with my saying that this is the very core of his being, because that would imply that it persists throughout the movie, and that is what I'm saying. But what about the ending? He races into Bedford Falls ready to embrace that tiny town with all its trappings as truly desirable. Is that what happens at the end of the movie? This film has been a Christmas entertainment staple on TVs across the U.S. for longer than I've been alive. It and its audience literally predate me. So, with all deference to your autonomy as a movie watcher, let me just say, if you think that's what happens, that George Bailey finally starts loving his hometown for what it is, you may still be watching it through for the first time. Even if you've been watching for decades, if that's what you see at the end of the movie, I'm going to lump you into that camp of folks I described in part 1 who got offered the second bet. Because, like them, you think the movie ends. As best I can tell, when you see the movie for what it has become, you know you're watching a loop. Not an audacious claim here, I don't think. It's perfectly evident, even in little stuff like, say, a silent chuckle you might make to yourself as the broadcast cuts to commercials before the next show. Oh, George Bailey, so happy there with the whole town. See you next year, buddy. Within sentiments such as this reside an implicit recognition of perpetuity, which is now part and parcel of It's a Wonderful Life. Yep, it's all gonna happen again. I don't know if I could be bothered to watch it next year, but I know someone will. Now, we don't have to make a big deal of it. It just is. But heaven help us. All the heavenly constellation flashing angel thingies help us if we ever do decide to bear down and make this eternal broadcast recursion a big deal in our reading of this cinematic text. Because then, when you see George's shining face singing Old Lang Syne by the Christmas tree with Mary at his side and Zuzu on his hip, and you know full well that this conclusion is anything but, well, meditate on that too much, and this saccharine slosh of a scene becomes a gritty, unflinching depiction of a manic episode. You know, the kind of thing that naturally follows in the course of dramatic mood swings back and forth, the kind of thing that is far too unstable to ever be a resolution, the kind of thing that inevitably leads back to gloomy places we've inhabited before. Okay, for a moment, George is not like the scrawny kid on the losing end of the tug-of-war. Instead, he's racing like a Looney Tune around to the farthest extreme of the winning side of the tug-of-war, and he's yanking so furiously at that end of the rope, we can tell that he thinks he's the one giving everyone else the idea of which way to pull. I will concede this mania is different from all his previous moods, but it is still the same George. This is a man who keeps his balance by pulling against everyone else. Even when he's on their side, he's more on their side than even they are. And there ain't no one ever going to direct his desire. Or so he'll be telling himself, for as long as continues this sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet, always endless replay.